Okay, we're going to commence this meeting of the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System Board of Trustees. Appreciate each of you being here today on June 28, 2024 in the Cordell Hall Building in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm David Lillard, Tennessee State Treasurer and Chair of the Board. And let's see, I want to make sure that we got our people who are board members who are on the phone can hear properly. Ms. Moore, can you hear okay? Okay, and Comptroller Mumpower? Yeah. Okay, all right, good. All right, we've got that going here at the moment. And again, welcome to the meeting here today. Today, I want to note a couple of things just before we get started here and have the roll call. First of all, as a point of pride, I want to point out I'm wearing a Tennessee orange pen today and have been wearing it all week since Monday, since our UT Vols baseball team won the World Series championship, the first time in the history of the program since it was founded, I think, in 1897 is what their website says. So we're all very proud in Tennessee of our Vols here these days, and just wanted to be sure and note that as a point of personal privilege, and I'm sure that all those people who participate in the retirement system are similarly proud too. So thank the world for that. All right. Also, I want to note Jamie Wayman, our director of the TCRS, is not here today. He's on vacation. We have Sarah Crollo with us, CPA, who is the deputy director of the TCRS, and she is going to be the acting secretary today. So we welcome Sarah in that regard. All right, first thing we'll do is call the roll. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Mr. Archer? Mr. Barker?
Here.
Commissioner Bryson? Mr. Fox?
Here.
Mr. Ellis? Secretary Hargett? Treasurer Lilly?
Here.
Director Long?
Here.
Ms. Maxwell?
Here.
Ms. Moore? Here. Comptroller Mumpower? Here. Mr. Stanfield?
Here.
Director Wayman? Commissioner Williams?
Present.
Mr. Wormsley? Here.
All right, quorum is present. And let's see, do we have the text of the statement of necessity, item number 3? All right, you want to read the statement of necessity for the record?
Yes. This meeting is being held pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 844-108B2, where a quorum of the Board of Trustees for the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System is participating by electronic or other means of communication, i.e. teleconference, and not by a physical quorum. The law requires that in order for a quorum of the members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. The law further provides that such determination and a resuscitation of the facts and circumstances on which it is based must be included in the minutes of the meeting. The necessity for a quorum of the board members to meet by electronic participation is that the board needs to consider several political subdivisions petitioning for participation in the retirement system in a timely manner so that their respective employees can begin to accrue salary and service credit in the retirement system. A quorum of the board cannot meet physically for an expeditious review of these employer applications. Additionally, the board is statutorily required to meet on a quarterly basis. The date of today's board meeting is the last day of the second quarter of 2024. The board would not be in compliance with the law if the board meeting were delayed because the quorum of the board could not meet physically. In order for the retirement system to meet these objectives, it is necessary for the quorum of the board to meet by teleconference.
Okay. Chair would move adoption of the statement of necessity. Is there a second? All right, we have a second by Mr. Wormsley. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call the roll on motion to adopt the statement of necessity.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Treasurer Lillard?
Yes.
Director Long?
Yes.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Moore? Yes. Comptroller Mumpower? Yes. Mr. Stanfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams? Aye. Mr. Wormsley?
Yes. Okay, motion is adopted, statement of necessity is adopted. We're going to alter the order of the agenda just a little bit here with the board's consent to move to the item number 4 next, which would be the Board of Trustee Audit Committee report. Mr. Barker, the chair of the committee, is recognized.
We did meet this morning. The audit committee met at 9 o'clock rather than at 8 as our usual time. We did have a quorum present. We adopted the minutes from our previous meeting, December the 1st. Other items that were considered, we reviewed the letters from the comptroller's 2023 audit opinion letters, the internal audit results in 4 different areas that are compared to other records, other departments, date of birth, gender match, salary, and the LEA certification records for teachers. We also reviewed the TCRS Director's Office Risk Report, a good report on that, with a focus on prevention of various risks. Reviewed the internal audit tracker. There were no calls to the comptroller's hotline, and we had comments related to the updates related to pension administration, overpayments legislation, and new laws. We had no public comment today. That's our report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, are there any questions, Mr. Barker, Chairman Barker, about the audit committee report? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is item number 5, political subdivisions seeking participation. The administrative committee and the investment committee both did not meet today, so we will proceed to the secretary's report on these political subdivisions seeking participation.
There are 4 political subdivisions seeking participation in TCRS effective July 1st, 2024. The first one is Town of Blaine. They are looking to join Legacy Regular Defined Benefit Plan. The entity is allowing employees to establish up to 5 years of service in TCRS prior to the date of participation. The employer will pay a lump sum of $55,306, which is the increased liability if all employees establish all the service for which the employee is eligible. Initial employer rate is 8.17%, and employees will contribute 5%. They are including cost of living adjustments, and they are not allowing part-time employees to participate. They have 8 current employees. The next one is City of Crossville. They previously participated in the Legacy Regular Defined Benefit Plan. They withdrew effective 7/1/2013. They are wanting to join the hybrid plan with cost controls. By statute, cannot withdraw again. They can change the plan design, however. No prior service allowed, they are providing cost of living adjustments. They are not allowing participation of part-time employees, and they have 185 current employees. The initial employer rate is 4%, and the employee will contribute 5%. They are using the state's 401k plan with the DC portion of the hybrid plan. The next is the Humboldt Utilities Authority. They were previously part of the City of Humboldt, have reorganized, and are now a separate legal entity. They are joining the Legacy Regular Defined Benefit Plan. No prior service is being allowed. They are providing cost of living adjustments. They're not allowing participation of part-time employees, and they have 43 current employees. Initial employer rate is 7.99%, and the employee rate is 5%. The last one is Saltillo Utility District. They are joining the Legacy Regular Defined Benefit Plan. They are not allowing prior service. They are providing cost of living adjustments. They are not allowing participation of part-time employees, and they have 1 current employee. The initial employer rate is 11.1%, and the employees are not contributing anything. And that is it.
All right, without objection from the board, we'll consider these 4 applications for political subdivisions seeking participation together as a whole. And Mr. Barker, did you have a statement to make?
Yes, Chairman. I'm a member of the board of the Humboldt Utilities Authority. I have no financial connection with that, not an employee of the authority, and don't accrue any TCRS credit time as being a member of the board.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we appreciate that disclosure, and we've talked to the council for the TCRS, and disclosure of that is sufficient under these circumstances. And since the chairman does not have a financial interest in the transaction at hand. All right, are there any other discussion points about these items here? Chair will move approval of each of these items as a whole, A, B, C, and D, under number 5 for admission as political subdivisions seeking participation. Is there a second? All right, Mr. Wormsley seconds. Is there any discussion on those items? All right, seeing none, Madam Secretary, call the roll on the motion to approve.
Mr. Barker?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard?
Aye.
Director Long? Ms. Maxwell?
Aye.
Ms. Moore? Comptroller Mumpower? Mr. Stanfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Mr. Wormsley?
Okay, item is approved. All right. We'll go back to the minutes on item number 3 of March 22, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from March 22, 2024? Says motion. There's a second. So there's a motion by Ms. Long and second by Mr. Barker. Any discussion on that? If not, Madam Secretary, call the roll on the motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Barker? Aye. Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard?
Aye.
Director Long?
Aye.
Ms. Maxwell?
Aye.
Ms. Moore? Comptroller Mumpower? Mr. Stanfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Mr. Wormsley?
Okay, the item is approved. I'll ask on item number 7 next, opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment for the board today? Yes, ma'am. Would you state your name and also the purpose of your visit here, and we'll give you 3 minutes, okay? Mm-hmm. Right. Chair controls the meeting, and I'm giving you 3 minutes.
Okay. The topic is Social Security and the pension plan. My sister became a widow in January. We tried to get information from TCRS. She was denied benefits from Social Security because of her TCRS pension plan. A second agent told us the same thing, a second Social Security agent. And then we contacted TCRS. We got no response. I continued to ask, and finally they responded and said that she was subject to GPO, the government pension offset by Social Security. I did not feel this was correct. I contacted an organization called AMAC, the American Mature Adults Coalition. And after consulting with them, they determined that she was not subject to GPO. She would have lost about $75,000 in survivor benefits because of the wrong information that was provided by TCRS. I was not happy with this information, and so I went back to TCRS and asked them to reconsider. They told me that Director Wayman eventually sent me a letter that stated she was not subject to GPO. She could have lost $10,000 in benefits in the delay of that information. There is a flaw within the internal part of the TCRS program. I have outlined a 4-point improvement recommendation so that other retirees are not denied and receive reduced benefits due to the failure of TCRS to prepare retirees for the Social Security program. In their own statement on Social Security, they don't even mention the penalties that can apply and how to determine whether or not they are subject to this. And I would like to submit to the board my recommendations, and I hope you will consider them. One of the Social Security agents told my sister that he always applied that penalty, and he processed many claims for teachers in Tipton and Shelby counties. If nothing else, this board has an obligation to those two counties specifically to make sure that retirees are not damaged financially from the neglect of the TCRS administration. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Could you state your name, please, ma'am?
My name is Cheryl Thomas.
Okay, and who is it your sister, is that your son?
That is correct.
What is her name?
I would like to not provide that information due to the grief that she is continuing to endure and the process she has gone through, being told she was denied benefits. And Dr. Wayman has that in the letter that I sent him, and he has responded to her as well.
Okay, well, I'll look into this personally. I'm very concerned about what you have said, and we will get to the bottom of this personally. I do need to have more information because I'm not familiar with the facts of this case.
It is a very complicated thing, and that's why I think it's important that it be checked out. And I will include that additional information so that you can do just that.
Okay. I'd ask that you talk to Steve Summerall, as Assistant Treasurer for Program Services that's back here. If you'd speak with him privately about this and give him any other information you can about it, I'd appreciate that. That will allow me to more efficiently dig to the bottom of what we have here, okay? But I assume you want the same thing I want, which is to resolve the issues involved here,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Thank
So
you
we'll
very
do that.
much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any further comments? Okay, all right, seeing that we've concluded that, then we'll go to the investment report, item number 6 by Mr. Brakebill.
Thank you, Treasurer and Board. Thomas, could you go to page 5? I'll just go through a couple of pages here on the investment performance analysis. This is the pie chart that shows our asset allocation and total value of the fund as of March 31st. And if you'll notice, the fund had a value of $69.7 billion. And just to put that in context, we started the fiscal year at 65.1. So in the 3 quarters, the fund has gained $4.6 billion in value. So it's been a great year overall. And again, what this will show you too is our allocation, and we're pretty neutrally allocated overall. And Tom, if you want to go to the next page here, we'll just say a couple things about the summary report and the summary analysis. Like I said, we've had good fiscal year numbers. On the very top line is the total fund, and it's got a fiscal year-to-date figure there of 8.52%. You know, the 1 year at 11.66, and our 10-year to the far right of 7.78. So, pretty solid. Not a huge, but a decent year. And you know, the one thing that's obvious about the period we're living through in the investment period is it's been a very strong equity market. Everything else is just kind of stumbling along, and you can tell that by if you go to the 1 year. Return column and you go down, you can see that our total equity portfolio is up 24% year on year, and a number of those are the composite pieces. But U.S. stocks are up almost 30%, so that's a huge year. Fixed income down near the middle is basically down. It's essentially flat year to year, and then our illiquid assets, real estate, private equity, and strategic lending, are all kind of treading water. Real estate's down, but down a whole lot less than our benchmark, and then what you see in peers and kind of, you know, large open-ended diversified core funds. So, which really are down about 12 to 15% with all the stuff that you've seen through this past year. Finally, one thing I would like to bring to your attention is that. If you'll notice in the middle, our emerging market equity portfolio, we're up 17.33%, which is a huge number, but we're trailing the benchmark by almost 4% there. That is due to some technical issues with the instruments that we use to invest that, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can improve that and have that closer tracking. If you'll recall, the thing that makes our emerging market equity portfolio unique is we don't own investments in countries like China. And what that has done in this past year is, if you'll see, our benchmark is up 21.2. The broad emerging market benchmark, which includes China, is only up 8%. So our benchmark beat the broader benchmark by 13%. So even though we've underperformed, that 17.3 has underperformed the 21.2, it has outperformed the EFA benchmark by 9%. So kind of good news, bad news there. And then, Tom, let's go ahead and let's move on. Unless anybody has any questions on investment performance, I'll move on to kind of more current analysis on the investment report. So if you want to just pull out of that presentation and go to the other one. Yeah, there you go. Just to kind of hit some summary items, we've tried to do these. I've tried to go through these kind of on a systematic basis, kind of quarter to quarter. If you go on to page 3, you know, housing has been a key thing in this pandemic recovery and the boom. We saw this massive spike in home values. You know, one of the inflationary signals. You know, you see it basically coming down. The bottom right shows that the housing market has really kind of, you know, it hasn't declined necessarily, but it's not really accelerating the way it was before. That was the part, I think, years ago I came in and said, you know, the Fed has to stop that. It cannot keep galloping like that. Similarly, we look at goods every quarter, which is on page 4. What this chart intends to show is how that the flow of materials through the economy on the goods side, and how that, you know, inflation, so it starts basically at the top and it flows through to CPI at the bottom. The top is basically kind of more core goods, and then intermediate and finished goods, and then how it flows through. And you can see the inflationary pulse really hit the economy, hit those core things a lot, obviously flowed through our CPI, and they're all on a declining path, which has been good news. I will say that we had some recent inflation data that were very positive as far as inflation being moderating. Today, in fact, the core PCE was basically 0.1% month to month, which is, you know, 1.2% annual rate. So the results we've gotten as of today look much more promising. Unemployment, this is one of the key things we worried about. There was this employment shortage going through the pandemic. The spike that I cut off was, this is initial unemployment claims. The spike that I cut off are, you know, how everyone essentially got laid off in the pandemic, and then that recovered shortly thereafter. The movement up in this indicator indicates a softening employment market, which really need to see some softening, but not a lot, and we are seeing some of that recently, we think. And another indicator of that is on page 6, which is shows, you know, aggregate hours and non-farm payrolls. The top is the nominal data, or the total data. The bottom is the rates of change, and you can see that has moderated. And so aggregate hours are only up about 1.8% year to year, and non-farm payrolls about that same number. One of the indicators I follow, we pay a research service called Evercore ISI for a product called their weekly surveys, which is on this page. And what they do, they have this systematic process where they go out and poll business leaders in all kinds of industries on a weekly basis, and produce this graph and these results. And it's basically like, is your business doing better or worse? And then they aggregate that over a period of time. And you can tell that has moderated substantially, which basically means, you know, the economy's, you know, slowing a bit, maybe not any kind of dramatic pull down. You can see in the recession, the gray bars, how fast that can turn around and fall apart. So we're in a good range now, watching to make sure it doesn't fall closely. But basically, to me, what this indicates is you've had a moderation and really in the hard push in the economy, which should help as far as keeping rates down and giving the Fed room to ease going forward. Page 8 shows the same thing with an indicator called the leading economic indicator. I put the recessions on that. You know, this is kind of flashing yellow a little bit because we've never really seen the LEI decline as much as it has this time without there really being a recession. So we're watching that closely as far as the broad economic piece. As far as markets, one of the key things that's underway right now is, you know, I'm sure we've all seen the news about stocks like NVIDIA, all the big tech stocks and how they're running. This chart shows how that has happened over a long period of time, and it's the equity concentration in the largest 10 stocks from 1970 to date. And interestingly enough, it's a little a smile chart. Basically, it starts high on the left and goes down and goes back up. So we're basically kind of where we were back in the day in the early 70s. But it indicates the market is pretty concentrated versus how it was historically, or how has it been for years and years. And the inset chart, I added that on this, which is what are the top 10 companies? And for grins, I highlighted the ones that are all tech companies to show you it's a tech market, it's a tech world right now, and for better or worse. So as investors and our investments for the pension, we need to be cognizant of that. And I just threw the next chart in just for interest's sake. It's like, what did this look like back in the day? And so that shows you how much the world has changed. This is from June 73. So, and all these years later, you know, IBM was huge, AT&T, Exxon, Kodak, General Motors, Sears, Roebuck. Those were the big names. And, you know, there is not a single one of those on the top 10 on this chart now. So that shows you how dynamic the market is over a period of time. One of the things that this transition has done, not just with those top 10 names, but the equity market is pretty highly valued, and that's what this chart shows. It's the median S&P, median PE for the S&P. It's not at a peak like it was at the end of 2021, but it's pretty high, and you can see it pretty high in relation to, you know, the tech bubble days in 2000, 2001, and then what we've seen historically. So that's another thing that gives a little flash of yellow, you know, kind of thinking about what happens with our investments in equities right now. Conversely, yields have risen a lot. This has been a very painful period of time for fixed income investors because if you owned bonds, which we did back in the 2020-21 days, the move up in yields means your prices have fallen. But where you are right now, as you can see, we're basically kind of back in a level that we haven't seen for 20 years or so as far as attractiveness of yields. You know, we're about 5%, 5.25% for a fixed income portfolio, which is pretty attractive, we think. Monetary policy is something we've talked about. I added a line on this chart. The black line going up and down was from our last meeting in March. And just to kind of see what's transpired is that basically investors see less rate cuts from the Fed than they did in March. So said another way, we think the Fed is going to be tighter this year than we thought in March or so. But what that has done on the orange line on the bottom is break-even inflation, what investors kind of embed into the markets, has actually tailed off. So investors are looking at this kind of increased tightness from the Fed and saying, well, we think that inflation's controlled. I added this chart as an overview of kind of investment, 101, kind of how we view the world, how we put portfolios together. And this is kind of a fundamental thing. Basically, this is a risk-return plot. Estimated risk goes out the x-axis, and up the y-axis is estimated return. The way these figures are generated is our investment consultant, Veris, has a process where they estimate these things on on a periodic basis, every quarter, every semi-annually. They have a whole process where they take where yields are, they take where inflation is, they take where equity valuations are, and then they developed this risk-return characteristics for each one of these assets. So all of the assets on here, besides TCRS, are their estimates for what those things should generate. You know, as an example, they have U.S. Treasury, or they have cash on the very left saying it has a 4% expected return with a very low risk. And that's one of the things embedded in their capital market outlook. The way we generate what return the portfolio should do going forward is you take all of these returns and run them through an optimizer using the weights of the portfolio itself, and that's what we get for TCRS. So TCRS is a bit over 7%, I think 7.4, and then estimated risk of about 12 or so. So, and it's comprised of all these different pieces. So that's kind of how we piece together, think about putting portfolios together, and we're looking at that and kind of re-underwriting the fund right now, and that's why I wanted to bring that to you. Finally, on my part, and then after this I'll ask Tom to introduce some folks for you. This is kind of the latest and greatest, not as of yesterday, which is a little better, but as of a few days ago, the portfolio was $70.7 billion, basically an all-time high, of $5.6 billion fiscal year to date, and almost $25 billion since the pandemic low. You know, we had the thing that's so wild about the period we've lived in is we had this just collapse in everything, and then right after that, everything soared back up. So $25 billion off the bottom, basically just a little over 4 years ago. We sold stocks to kind of keep our weightings close and to raise cash and to help pay benefits. And so we sold about $1.4 billion this year, almost entirely, or maybe entirely, from the domestic equity portfolio, which has done so well. One of the key things that has happened as we walk through these past few years is that a lot of the private assets kind of froze a little bit, and they weren't paying. We weren't getting distributions at the same pace that we would typically see. We think we're seeing kind of that starting to thaw, and so there's a thing called the denominator effect, which when our public assets fell and our private assets kept growing in value, we became overweight. We think that's starting to go away. I have on here our portfolio's up about 10% fiscal year. You know, that's a couple of days ago. It might be just shy of 11 right now. So a really pretty good time. So with that, I'll take any questions or ask Tom to introduce some people for you.
All right, Thomas Kim, Deputy CFA, Deputy Chief Investment Officer, you're recognized.
Good morning, everyone. Today I just wanted to talk about briefly our internship program and our interns for this summer. As you know, we have a consistent internship program at TCRS, and Michael Gigi and Matt Heides lead up the efforts, and they've been doing a great job reaching out to different schools and improving our program. So we have two programs here, and one in the spring, TCRS offers internships to undergraduate students. I think this year we got about 105 resumes. And for the summer, we target Tennessee graduate students, and we received 25 resumes. Out of those 25 resumes, we've hired 2 individuals for the summer. Abby Jenkins, you want to stand up for a second? Say hello.
Hello.
She has an undergrad from UCLA and has 3 years of experience, and she is a MBA student at Vanderbilt. We have Avery McCarkey. He grew up in the south of Chicago and moved on to Nashville, and he's an MBA student at Belmont. For the summer, portfolio managers and analysts are working with interns to improve and help our investment process, and we are glad to have them here today. And if you don't have any questions, I'll turn it over to Michael.
All right, welcome to the interns. All right,
That's
Michael.
all we have, Treasurer.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Brakebill today? Or Mr. Kim? All right. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is other business. Is there any other business to come before the board at this point? All right, seeing none, we'll just note that the future meetings of the board are tentatively set for September 27, 2024, and December 6, 2024. And we'll move to the next item, which is adjournment. Chair moves that the board adjourns. Is there a second? All right, there's a second, Mr. Wormsley. And it's non-debatable and non-discussable, so we'll ask Ms. Quayla to call the roll on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. Barker? Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Treasurer Lilly?
Aye.
Director Long?
Aye.
Ms. Maxwell?
Aye.
Ms. Moore? Comptroller Mumpower? Mr. Stanfill?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Mr. Wormsley?
All right, motion is approved. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your service to the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System and the people of Tennessee. Immediately following this, we'll have board education session for board members. I guess. Okay. What is the deal here with this?